So oops, I have this fancy tag here because I went to this also fancy event that I went to because someone at the Star was too incompetent to do their fact-checking, and somehow I did, and I was invited by the president of the Harvard Club. It was a great lecture about education in the age of AI by the Harvard professor Fernando Reimers, and also I got to meet a longtime hero. So nice to see a couple of familiar faces here, there, and everywhere, and thank you Yuan and the Harvard Club of Malaysia for the invitation. Now, why is this relevant to the video? Cause turns out the guy that we're talking about today is a Harvard alumnus. We'll be discussing the prosecution of Nadiem Makarim. A certain Nadim Makarim is under fire at the moment. Man is facing 18 years in prison. Anyway, a lot of people are very emotional about this case, which is a laptop procurement case. Apparently the guy went and negotiated with Google and did it in such a way that he could get money, but it turns out that the laptops were useless, and here we are today. And yeah, Indonesians are going nuts. I have friends who are literally going out and saying that they're going into depression because of this. Syed Sadiq is talking about this, and so is this guy.
Ini buruk oleh sebab case isu Nadiem, okay? Oleh sebab itu, Malaysia dengan Indonesia kita friend hari ini. Kita hidup rukun hari ini. Tak mau gaduh. Kita bestie, kita friend.
And I'm not surprised because once upon a time, I think a lot of people actually saw Nadim as like a wonder boy. I mean, just look at the guy's qualifications. MBA, Harvard Business School, Bachelor of Arts in International Relations, Brown, Chief Executive Officer at Gojek, and it goes on and on and on. I'm sure a lot of you think university degrees are useless, and that's a perfectly fair point of view, but let's not make the mistake of trivializing what this guy was actually managing. I mean, dude, the guy was literally sitting pretty on top of a $9.5 billion company. Nadim was a revolutionary back during his time at Gojek, and he was a revolutionary as well when he was introducing Merdeka Belajar, basically making education in Indonesia less rigid, less exam-centered, more connected to real-world life. And there were so many interesting ideas that he brought to bear. I'm really not surprised that the guy has fans, because I've actually listened to him talk before, pretty extensively in fact, and the man is an absolute unit and fully deserving of being one of the most respected people in the entirety of Southeast Asia, if not the world. I have friends who are personally working on some of his projects, a lot of which would never have been possible if not for the fact that he had a Harvard connection and all of that intellectual capital to just improve Indonesia as a full-on country. I mean, he literally brought CS50 to Indonesia amongst other things, and so many other interesting projects to upskill Indonesian school teachers. There were so many things that he actually brought about, and it really showed the impact that a single person can have on a society if they really work hard, care. He wasn't just like some super elite high degree sepup living off their qualification. No, like he actually pushed forward. Sepups, honestly, I think of this as being kind of like Indonesia's version of 1MDB. Like how 1MDB at some earlier point was actually recruiting Ivy League graduates and bringing them into Malaysia because people actually thought that they were contributing to the country, and this is Indonesia's version of it. Now, don't get me wrong, there is the chance that maybe Nadim did try to enrich himself, maybe he did get involved in corruption, but personally I just have to ask, like, why would somebody who was already from a privileged background, as Suhaimi Ramli writes about in his review of Nadim, are you really saying that he destroyed the self-confidence of an entire generation of Indonesians who were coming back to Indonesia wanting to contribute to Indonesia and were really pushing forward just because of some money? Honestly, bros, I find it super hard to believe. And you know, suppose when I think about what's happening to Nadim and everything that happened after he came out of power, I can't help but just think about all the stuff that was happening in Indonesia last year when a Gojek, reminder, driver was run over by an armored truck in the middle of protests with the One Piece flag. After, by the way, a bunch of Indonesian parliamentarians were basically dancing because they had their allowances increased. And I can't help but think that Indonesia is basically intentionally shutting out one of its brightest minds. A culture of valuing intellect is shutting down, and Nadiem Makarim is the figure right at the center of all of that. I have no idea what that's gonna do to the national spirit of Indonesia, but I don't think this is good. And you know, at this point, I just can't help but wonder why this is happening. Apparently, it had nothing to do with politics. It was all just an investigation into corruption. But then people would just naturally ask, like, why Nadim? And why 18 years in prison? Like, bro, can you just imagine? One of the most talented talented people in the entire world and you're planning on sending him away. But it's really not easy to think about because like there's a legit case that's actually going on here. How much of that wrongdoing was him personally and how much of it was his ministry? But then it just makes you wonder about President Prabowo's government. I mean, Nadiem is a talented man, but he was Jokowi's wonder boy and not Prabowo's. And there's a whole lot of what you could call propaganda, sure, about Prabowo here, there, and everywhere. People trying to bring down Indonesia for reasons either valid or not valid. Though I guess people are wondering why it is that there can be a pardon for his rivals, but then somehow or another, Nadiem here is just facing this 18-year case, not a hint of any of that at all. And you know, so poops, when I think of this, I can't help but think of the story of another Nadiem, and that is Hung Nadim in the story Singapura dilanggar todak. If you don't know what that is, it's a story about how once upon a time, Singapore was attacked by swordfish, and at first the Raja wanted to protect against this by having people stand against the shoreline and then have their feet protect against the swordfish. So then Hung Nadim, in his youthful innocence, comes out and says, why don't we just use banana tree trunks instead? Let the swordfish jump, hit the trunks, we don't sacrifice anyone, and we can eat swordfish sashimi. Don't quote me on that. They do that, the island is safe, but instead of rewarding Hung Nadim at the end of the day, these guys become insecure, they think he's too smart, and they proceed to sentence him to death. You know, Hung Nadim, Nadim Makarim, the names just sound kind of similar, it's a complete coincidence. But really, this is what I'm seeing. The boy who was too smart being shut down by leaders who know that he is too smart. And yes, I know there's a legal case, there's actual evidence being presented and everything else along the way. But I know that the people of Indonesia feel what I feel at the moment, that one of the best and the brightest of their society, a shining star, is being cast into the ocean. I'm sorry, this is what's happening. Raya Indonesia, case ini memang anjir, but I hope that you'll be strong. Don't give up, and may justice prevail. But what do you think about this, Sapoops? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. That's all I have to say about that, and bye.